court, if it's a civil or county court, it's not a court. I don't mean the fact that, oh, it's not a court. It's actually not a court. The judge isn't on his oath, which comes from common law. So that building may be a court. There may be people in fancy dress in that building. It's not actually a court, and you have to actually comprehend that and know that when you go in, because once you truly know that isn't a court, then everything that's going on in there is contractual, and you can put contractual obligations on the other parties in that room or in that enterprise that they're doing. So, and that's very important. Remember, it is not a court, and it's not just me saying it. Go and check it out. The judge isn't operating under his oath of office. So what have we got? We've just got possibly someone, like I say, someone fancy dress. People sat around a room. It's not a court. It's only a court if you consent to it to be in a court.
So how did you come up with that the conclusion? Tell me a little bit about the story.
Right. Well, basically, loads of different various ways. But first and foremost, through their major tones. So through when you check through Halsbury's absolutely states point blank that they're not court, that they're not legitimate. So, and they have no authority, and no Act of Parliament can legitimise them. So they're just between the executive and the judiciary. It's just an agreement. So once you know this, but you go into there thinking it's a court, they'll treat you like it is a court. When you go in there and you state categorically that it is not a court, and they have no jurisdiction, they cannot establish the jurisdiction, because the judge will not be on his oath, because his oath is under common law, and so therefore his oath can't be used in administrative matters. He has to do it with your consent, and if you don't consent, it's not a court. Halsbury's, basically it states, I paraphrased it. If you read the document, it's very large. So I paraphrased it and basically stated to the judge that Halsbury's Administrative Law 2011 states that these courts are not basically operating inside the law, and no Act of Parliament can legitimise them. And so the judge said, and it says that in Halsbury's. And I said, yeah. And he said, we might have problems. And I said, well, why do you have got problems? Because all of you are causing me to suffer a tort. Everybody in this room, including the guy who opened the door. You've all caused me to suffer a tort. So I will cause you to suffer a commercial lien. And then when the judge did come out after, he was a good judge, and the recordings on FMOTL of the incident. And I said to him words around he came out and said, you might be right and I might be wrong, and I might end up locked up one day, but basically this is the status quo, so that's what I'm upholding. And because he knows the score, he's got no authority. So when you go into these places, you go in and if there's someone there in fancy dress, fine. I mean, you can wear what you want. And if they're wearing a sheep on their head, it doesn't make them a judge. What makes him a judge is his oath. And if he's not on his oath, I don't care what he's wearing. He can be dressed as Winnie the Pooh. It doesn't mean he wants a jar of honey. So and that's what we've got with these people, because basically they know they're operating outside the law. They are actually outlaws. They're illegal and out of law. So they're not actually operating inside the law. So they're outlaws to us. Years ago, I was in prison with the guy who was in for 7 years. He was a solicitor, and he had 7 years for stealing the public's money, legal aid. When I got out of prison, I got reintroduced to him, and I thought he could help us out with the legal work, doing lawful work, doing what we're doing now. Anyway, he ended up being a parasite, and me and him fell out. So, cut long story short, he took me to court for saying I owed him £6,000, but I'd already paid him £4,000 for some work, and I wasn't prepared to pay him any more. Anyway, so he took me to court, and he got a rubber stamping clown, a county court judge, to rubber stamp it for him, and he then went and got a local group of solicitors to send around bailiffs around to our place. Now, these bailiffs came round, and I issued them a document. I said, go away, who are you, what do you want, and is your business lawful? And if you do, I'll contract with you. And the bailiffs went off, and they came back and they threw a stick over the wall at me with a large lump of wood with an envelope on the front. So when we opened up the envelope, we found out it would come from the local solicitors. So off we went down there to see why they're sending people around the house to chucking pieces of wood at us. So off we went down to the solicitors, and when we got in there, start talking to the receptionist. Why are you sending people around to my house throwing pieces of wood? And this chap came out from, and I thought I recognised him. This chap came out and said, "Who what?" And I said, "Who what? What do you mean who what?" Yeah? So we explained to him people have been throwing wood at us. So he then started shouting at the receptionist, saying, "Call the police! Call the police!" So I said, "All right, look, call the police. I want the police to come because you guys have been around my house and throwing pieces of wood at me." So I said, "Okay, I'll wait for you I'll wait over the pub over the road for the police to turn up." So over the road we go, and wait for the police. About half an hour later, all these coppers buzzing around, and they're buzzing around, and they haven't sort of come out. So I'm going, "Wait, I think it's me you want over here." So what's the matter? "Oh, so, yeah, you're under arrest." "Well, I'm under arrest." So I'm under arrest, so I'm taken off down the police station, and I'm locked up for 10 hours. So then they take me for interview. And they said, "Right, you're in the local solicitor's office with a piece of wood, threatening them, swearing at him. He's written a statement." So I said, "He's written a statement to this effect, he's a solicitor." And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I didn't swear and I didn't threaten him." "Oh, he says you have, and he's written a statement." So I said, "Well, he's guilty of perjury and the Perjury Act then, so because we've got a tape recording of the whole incident." I said, "My wife was taping it." And they said, "Why didn't you tell us?" I said, "You didn't ask." I said, and so, hence, lo and behold, the tape recording proved that I didn't threaten him, I didn't even swear at him. So I tried to get him done then for preventing the course of justice, and that, again, uphill battle, you know. I've done all these things, so what they ended I've hit him with the commercial liens in the sum of £2,110,000. And that was for causing me all the talks by getting me locked up, having people chucking pieces of wood at me, etc., etc. So he obviously doesn't know what a commercial lien is, and so he's ended up committing estoppel by his acquiescence. So he owes me the money. He now owes me the money. But in the meantime, I'd realised that I recognised this guy, and I recognised him because this solicitor I had also been in prison with, but in the 1980s. And he now is parading himself around town as a solicitor and charging £220 an hour. So I thought, this is very peculiar. How can he be a solicitor? You know. So we then send him commercial lien. We send him notice of activation of the commercial lien to his home, obviously, because he's been sending people to my home, so I'll send things to his home. So we did that, and the next thing is, it's the 29th of September. I have to go to a bankruptcy hearing. So rather than get me bankrupt at the time, I decided I'd pay it all in cash, okay, and get it all sorted out beforehand. But unbeknown to me, on the 21st, a week before that, he had gone and seen one of these local little corrupt rubber stamping judges that I know and have had lots of issues with, and tried to take out an injunction against me. Well, why he wanted to take an injunction out, I don't know, but that's what he wanted to do. He went and seen this judge on the 21st, and the judge sent him to see another senior judge on the 26th to get the injunction. So a QC over in Worcester Crown Court gave him the injunction, granted him, with an arrest warrant attached to it. So I'm not to go near his house, which means I can't go down a particular road in Hereford. I'm not to go near him or anything else. So all this caper's going on. So, of course, he gets that on the 26th. Now, I don't even know he's got it. I turn up in court on the 29th, and when I go to court on the 29th, he's in there, and the judge are in there, and they both know there's an injunction for me not to even be in the same room as this man. And neither of them even mention it to me. And of course, on an injunction, part of the injunction is that you're informed straight away. So they've both allowed this to go on. And so, alright, next thing I get a thing through the door saying there's an injunction against me. So I said to the judge, and left in the notice, a bill of obligation to him, fair enough, it's all unlawful anyway, mate. If I get arrested for this now, then I'll charge you £5 million. Every time I drive around the town to get to my properties in a roundabout manner, I'll charge you £5,000. So we sent the judge £25,000 worth of bills, which he hasn't paid at the moment. So that was fine. And then we got a letter through the door saying that this chap who's taken the injunction out against us, now you've got to take in mind he took the injunction out, knowing that the last court case I ever had to be in with him was on the 29th, he got on the 26th, didn't tell me. He's got this injunction taken out against me, and he's now trying to charge me £5,500 for him taking an injunction out against me. This bench solicitor. So of course I'm not having that, am I? So I go down to the police station and I try and get him done under the Fraud Act 2006. Yeah. So put all the evidence to the police. And the next thing is then, he obviously got wind of it or whatever, so the next thing is, he's gone to the court and tried to enforce the arrest warrant against me, to get me arrested, saying that I'd rung him. So, the police keep coming around our house, and the police are well aware, and the police are getting very well educated in this matter. They know all about the contract and the fact that they're not actually operating under the law on these things. So I contacted the police and said, you don't really want to get involved in this, because there's a whole issue with the commercial liens. And the police ended up very sensibly not coming and getting me, because what can they do? They're coming round with an instrument from a county court. No more a court than a tennis court. Trying to arrest me. How can they arrest me? I'm in my house. They would have to break the law to enforce something that isn't lawful. So they decided to pull ahead and they weren't getting involved. And the end result is the police rang me up and said, I'll go to the court, the unlawful administrative hearing that pretends to be a court, off my own back. And they said, okay, we'll do that. And then they rang back and said, no, the police won't, the court won't accept you unless you're arrested, and we're not prepared to arrest you. So it's dissolved. Now this chap's still trying to get the £5.5 grand for his injunction. Yeah, okay, which is absolutely ludicrous. He's still trying to get that money, but even if I was going to pay for an injunction, it would have to be worth the paper it's written on, and if it's got arrest to be executed and they don't execute it, then it's not worth anything, is it? So why would I pay for someone to do a job if they didn't do it? He said some private detective rang 2 days before Christmas with a cowboy hat on, like some sort of Clint Eastwood type character, filming through our front window. So Linda's gone out there and had a go at him and said, is there something wrong with him? Is he, And then we called the police on him, which is the best thing to do, bailiffs, and that. Call the police on him, because these people are breaking your peace. And then he came round again then, a couple of days later, and unfortunately for him, a friend of mine was round here delivering a Christmas card, and he thought I was my friend. So he followed my friend, and my friend pulled in the lay-by, he pulled up behind, and my friend got out and said, who are you, mate? What are you following me for? And he said, I'm trying to ascertain who you are. He said, you ascertain who I am? I want to know who you are. So the bloke started revving the engine of his car, so he snatched the keys out, my mate did, because he thought he'd run over his foot. And said, right, I'm going to the old bill. So he threw the keys back in and went and reported this to the police. And this solicitor sent the same guy around again a few days later. Linda, my wife, removed him from the property.
We had a bailiff bucket ready.
And we had a bailiff bucket ready, and we've got a load of chickens, and we had a load of chicken manure in there with a bit of boiling water and ready for him, like. But we have to have the bailiff bucket. So once they breach the boundaries of your gates, and you've given them full notice, you've given an adhesive notice on those gates that anyone who enters £5,000, they want to come in, then they've got contract. And if they come in, it's up to you. If they get injured, it's up to they're under full commercial liability by coming in through the gates. So yeah, so that's been an interesting development, and so we have to see where that one goes now. So that's why we've written to the court and said basically that they're all fraudulent and that they're not actually a court, they're an unlawful administrative hearing, and that we know this. And so basically I want them to either arrest me for lying, yeah, or if I'm telling the truth, then you can't go in here, boys, because I'm not coming into your pretend buildings anymore. So, like I say, it's very much like kids playing cowboys and Indians, bang, bang, you're dead, bang, bang, you're dead. And then it's like now 12 o'clock at night and saying, come on kids, off to bed. Bang, bang, you're dead. Come on, bang, bang. So they're playing courts and police and judges and things, and it's not just fiction. I'd been pulled over in a car, and I said I was travelling, I wasn't driving, and the police arrested me and took me to the police station, and blah, 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 and it's all went on. And then I went to court, and when I went to court for it, the first judge comes up, and he got 2 coppers with him because he thinks I'm going to arrest him, so they arrest him, and they're not allowing the public in court. We recalled doing that, and he said, first of all, we can have an application to see if we can have the public in court. And I said, well, you haven't got the jurisdiction to deal with this case, so you haven't got the jurisdiction to deal with an application attached to this case, have you? So he said, no. I said, so I want a judicial review. So he said, oh, all right, and the coppers are wondering what's going on, because this is just blatantly no MOT and no licence, they think. And then, so, he said, can I just ask you one question? He said, have you got a licence? And I said, no, I ripped it up when I realised I didn't need one, which is a lie. Well, it wasn't a lie, I had a provisional licence, so I've never had a full licence.
So of course the police are very confused by this. So they're thinking, and he said, thank you that. So he said, you won't be pleading guilty. I said, we won't be pleading anything at all because I haven't broken the law, right? So then it went on for a judicial review. Well, this went on for a long time. So in the end, they kept mentioning it whenever I went to court for other things. So I said, oh, go on, we'll have a trial. So I thought, I want to test out some facts, you know, to do with travelling and driving, because driving is commercial activity and travelling isn't. So we went to court and, oh, it's hysterical. Really, when we had the court case. So I asked the judge the first few questions, right? And one of the first few questions is, right, can you answer this? Am I and the prosecutor both here with our consent? So this procedure is operating under our consent? And he said, yes. I said, fine, right. So, now, is the fact that I've now pleaded not guilty, because of course I wasn't pleading anything before, does that mean that I'm giving you the opportunity to find me guilty? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, that's insane. So what you're saying is, I know I'm not guilty because I'm travelling, but I'm still coming into this building and giving you the opportunity to find me guilty of something that I know I'm not guilty of. And he said, yeah. So, all right, fine. Well, we know where we are, so we don't plead to things that aren't against the law. Right, on any of this stuff.
Not in courts.
Yeah, that's right. But the funny thing was, when the policeman came in to give evidence, bless him, his name's Tim, right? Nice bloke, actually, to be honest with you, but he just got mixed up in all this. So when he came in...
He lost all his hair.
Yeah, well, apparently, yeah, because we issued proceedings against him, and then his senior officer had said to me that he was losing his hair, and so I said... So I dismissed it all and didn't bother following it up. Just as, you know, as an act of goodwill, really, because I got no particular problem with the geezer. And then when he came into court, and they'd given it all the waffle, the CPS, so I said, all right, Tim, because he's confused now, because I'm calling by his first name, because the judge is calling me Guy. And I said, right, Tim, I said, you're coming over to my world now, so buckle up to another dimension. So a bit of a giggle, like. And then we started arguing, and I realised he was lying about something, well, telling the truth about something. And he said, you're just using me as a pawn in your battle with the judiciary. He said, I mean, what? Bless him, wasn't it? And it was comical, wasn't it? But yeah, it's no animal. See, the police officers just don't know the law, so it's not, you know, you've got to get rid of all that dogma. But I mean, you know, I used to think, you know, you're going in there and they're rubbing you over with that wand, you know, and then what's your name and number and all this sort of stuff. You're the guilty party straight away. You feel guilty. That's what you're supposed to be. And if you're in there for a council tax or motoring, what are you doing in this sort of building? Because it's not really a court now, we know. It's not a court. It's unlawful administrative hearing. You see, these meetings that they have, they're CESGAV trust meetings. So this is to do with salvage and stuff, yeah? That's why up to the age of 7 you're called master. You know, well, if you're a boy, you're a master. And then at the age of 7, if the vessel hasn't been claimed, then the state claim it. And so, you know, this is why people register their children, which they shouldn't do, really. They can always, as long as they can still claim them back before the age of 7. So. I mean, this is what I say. It isn't much of a trust, is it? If it was a good trust, then they'd trust you enough to tell you it was a trust meeting and not a court. So there is no trust. Why go through the nonsense of a trust meeting? You thought you were in there for a court hearing, didn't you? But you weren't. So this isn't a court. You're not a judge because you're not on your oath of office today. So this case shouldn't be here. But as you have called me into this room, you will then suffer the consequences. I had a council tax, had a hearing. So what I do when I go to the hearing, when they try and serve papers on you, I serve papers on them. So I go to the prosecutor and say, hi, yeah, you want to give me them papers? Okay, I want to give you this. And it states basically that this is an unlawful administrative hearing. I'm informing you it is, and if you want to go into that arena, then I'm happy to go in, but it's going to cost you £50,000 on contract. And then if they go in, that's it. Then you've got the bill of obligation ready for your commercial lien. So I've done that with this chap, and I knew his home address, and so I sent the stuff to his home address. Of course, the police came around and arrested me for it. You know, so you shouldn't know his home address. Well, he knows my home address. Why shouldn't I know his home address? You know. So anyway, off to the police station, and so quite a long interview. And I explained to them. They said these documents look real. I said they are real. You know, and there we are. But they bailed me for a month. So they bailed me for a month, and I forgot to answer the bail, and which I never normally would have done. But I realised I hadn't done anything wrong. So you know,
I didn't. I forgot to answer the bell, so they rang us up and they said, "You haven't answered the bell." So I said, "More important things to do. You know, what do you want me for?" "Oh well, you know, we want to see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock." "Okay, well, I'll come then." So I got thinking. I thought, I'll send them a contract. So I sent them exactly the same contract as what I'd sent. They'd arrested me for. You know, as I sent to the prosecutor, I gave exactly the same contract to the police, and we faxed it through. I said, if you've got until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning to cancel it, you know, hard copy to follow. And they hadn't cancelled it in the morning. I rang them up and they said they still wanted me over there. So, oh, okay. So we went over there, and of course I'm thinking, well, I've given them now exactly what they'd arrested me for. So, you know, and when we got over there, the police didn't want to know. Police basically very sort of shifty and furtive, and said it was going to be different, but we've had to give all your contract to our legal team, and our legal team have said that you're not charged, you're not on bail, and they don't know what to do it. So, fine. I told you that the first time when you come round. You know what I mean? But it's taken this to get some remedy out of you. But so please, we need good police officers. But you must realise when you're not arresting or talking to people in law, you're in contract. And so, you know, I forgave the policeman. I didn't give him a contract because he seemed quite a nice chap. But I could have done. It wouldn't have been a problem. So they got to start waking up to all this now. The policeman. It's not a court. If it's not a court, they can't do it for contempt of court, which is the main thing, which you've got to look at. And I've actually done this because I served the court notice that I was going to be recording all proceedings because they're not a court, and I want the record of it. And so then they discovered that these recordings were going on the internet and stuff way back. So I got arrested and I got taken to custody, and they said that CPS were considering doing me for contempt of court. So I said, well, it's not a court. It's an unlawful administrative agent. So they said, yeah, but you're taping. I said, yeah, but I'm not taping inside a court. But if I didn't know that, if I thought it was a court, I would be consenting to being guilty of a crime of contempt of court, you know, albeit made up, you know. So, but when you know it's not, so I actually looked at the camera and said to them, you know it's not a court, I know it's not a court. If you want to charge me with contempt of court, which is a common law misdemeanour, and would have to have a jury deciding whether I was guilty of contempt of court, bring it on. And if you have a jury, what I do with the jury is this: you represent yourself, and you explain to the jury, hi, you think that most of these court cases now are obviously in English. Well, I'm going to explain to you they're not. They've got their own dictionary, and you put Black's Law Dictionary there, and you put Oxford English Dictionary there. And every word the prosecutor is going to be saying to you, I'm going to reinterpret for you in their language. Because the words sound English, but really they're not, they're foreign. And it's going to take a long time, but you're having to have a real good lesson, jury, and we're really going to get on with it. We're going to have a fine time. Okay? You realise you're a legal fiction. And the whole caboodle with all this stuff. So, how can you be done for contempt of court if you're not in a court? It's an impossibility.
And you weren't.
And I wasn't. And the CPS wrote me a letter. In fact, I can show you the letter saying no further action. Because I'm not in a court. But if I thought I was, then I would have been. You know, and that's the problem. And I'd have consented to going down the stairs and doing time. But people don't get done for contempt of court. Newspapers get done for contempt of court. Functionaries get done for contempt of court. People get held in contempt. That's a different thing. So if there's somebody in the dock shouting and screaming, and they hold him in contempt, take him down the stairs, yeah? That's a different matter. He's not been charged with contempt. He's been held in contempt. And then they give him the opportunity to purge his contempt. So he can come back and say, and they've purged his contempt. That's a different matter. You're not charged with contempt. And so this is where the difficulties go on for him. So like when the police were going to, when the county court issued an arrest warrant for me, which wasn't lawful because it came from county court and I hadn't broken the law, what the police, if they tried to enforce that upon me, would have been entering into contract with me. So when the county court were issuing documents, and the most powerful thing on it is power of arrest, and they're not able to execute that power of arrest because the police, God bless them, won't issue it. These courts aren't courts. They've shown they're not courts just by that simple document, and by that simple statement of it. Give you an order, you give them a bill. 1983, a chap, I had a window cleaning round, and this chap borrowed some ladders off me, some big aluminium ladders while I was away in Spain, and when I came back, he'd sold them or whatever, but he avoided me like the plague,
And I got rather annoyed in the end, so I went round his house and I got in through his window and I took all his video equipment, his old in them days video equipment and his stereo and things, and just loaded him in the car, broad daylight. And the police got called and I got arrested. But I knew, even though I was a young man, I knew that this was right. He's got some of mine, I got some of his. And I left a note behind saying, "I've taken your stereo and that. I'll give it you back when you give me the ladders back." So the police arrested me. He said, "It's burglary." I said, "It's not burglary. Burglary is entering the premises as a trespasser with intent." And I haven't got no intent. Intent to do what? Intent to just keep hold of his goods until he gives me mine back. And I had a solicitor, good solicitor in them days, and he came down and he agreed with me. He said, "No, it's a lien." So he said to me, "It's a lien." And of course, I was only in 1983. I was only 21. Lien. I stuck that word in my head. And he said, "Yeah, someone's got your glasses. You can take theirs." And hold them as hostage until he gives them back. So I thought, oh, brilliant. So I kept that in mind, that I was doing a lawful action. And then in later years, in 1990 I think it was, I was doing a job helping my friend run a bakery had gone bankrupt, and we were just getting rid of all the surplus stock for the liquidators, for the inland revenue. And then they refused to pay us our last wages, which was about 400 quid. He said, "Well, you can have it when the estate's been sold, like, and sorted." So I said, "No, we want the money now." And he said, no. So, of course, we had the keys. I went down there at night, pulled up, got these 2 huge Welsh dressers at the bakery, put them back in the van, took them to a council garage up in the estate. Of course, everyone had seen us, so I got arrested for burglary. "No, not a burglary, I've taken these goods as a lien. Where are they? None of your business." And they again proved right. I was given the £420 and I gave them the Welsh dressers. And that was in 1990. So that's the practicality behind these liens. And that's the way you establish them. That's the way to establish these things. Because a commercial lien isn't a piece of paper. People have got this mistake. It's a piece of paper with a notary seal on it. Yet that's the paper trail to a commercial. A commercial lien is a construct. You constructed what's going on in there, and they've also constructed it by acquiescing to it. Usually, like, but that's what that is. Oh, a lien is alien. So that's what an alien is. An alien body. Watch Star Trek, you'll see lots about contract law, because they don't use money, and because in Star Trek they're all aliens. And they're aliens, an unnecessary or unwarranted charge upon something, an illegal alien, he's an illegal charge upon the state running about, And that's what it's all about, It is word magic, That's what they've been using against us. So we're using it back now. Well, I think bringing them into court is the last thing you need to do. As I've said on many occasions, if myself and you have a game of cards and I lose £1,000 to you in a game of cards, we don't need some judge telling you that I don't owe you the £1,000. We both know I do. And so why would we involve the judiciary? And this is private law, this is law, and the debt is already established. Once the lien's gone through and it's been perfected, and they haven't responded, that means by not responding, what that means is they've agreed, and you put that in your contract. And so if they've agreed to it, there's nothing to argue about. I don't need to go to court to argue about this with people. They owe me £1 million, they owe me £1 million. Then I have to enforce that upon them. Well, don't go to a court and hope the court's going to help you enforce it, because they won't. They'll rubber stamp you out of the game, and you don't need that. So you enforce it yourself. And it's a valid commercial instrument, so there's various ways of enforcing it. And I said breaking the back of these liens. So people keep saying about monetarising these liens. Well, we don't want money, we want remedy for everybody. So now they're a valid commercial instrument. If you had a massive ingot of gold, you wouldn't want to be scraping tiny bits off buying loaves of bread. You'd set up your account so that lump of gold could be providing you somehow. So this is what we do. But breaking the back of these liens is the best way is, like I said, for instance, a solicitor. Well, let's use the council as an example. The council owe me £10 million. So go around, pick up a load of council benches or flower pots, whatever. Pull up in a van, put them in the back of the van, sit there and wait for the police to turn up. Do it. Police will turn up and say, "What are you doing? Stealing the park benches?" No, got a commercial lien. Show the police officers all your documentation, show that you're doing it within the law. They're not required. Then duty's done. They're not going to arrest you because it will be a civil offence, they'll say, and they'll wander off. You then sell the benches at a local auction house, and so you get £20 for them. You then send the receipt to the council saying, "Hi, we've taken £20 off your bill. We've sold these benches." Now, they've then made a part payment of your lien. And they say, "No, we didn't. You stole them." Well, is there any evidence of that? Because the police haven't charged me. So if the police haven't charged me and I've actually sold your property, not our property, but your property, what does it mean? It means that you've made a legitimate payment for a lawful debt.
And the next step then, any empty council buildings then become
yours. And this is the way, you know, occupy yourself first and get diplomatic immunity with yourself, and then you can occupy where you want, together as groups. But, you know, yeah, I think that's the way, and that is the way to do the lien. That really is. You know, break its back, just get as much paperwork as you can established between you and the other party, and then get a practical action done. And and the practicality is, I have done a couple of practical actions. You go and do the practical action, it breaks the back of the lien, you can prove that they have paid some of their debt, and you can establish that fully. And so
yeah. So then, you can, if anything goes into the court, you keep all those processes outside of it. You put a stat deck and then just
that's it. But I mean,
list a copy of the.
Yeah, but I mean that's the point. This is the point. I would not advise people to actually upload this into the court system. As I said, why would you want to? If I know that I owe you money, I don't need some judge telling me I do. You know, they owe you the money. That is always a commercial bond at all times. You can just every time your council tax comes up, deduct the bill and send them that and take it off the lien. Simple as. And so, you know, you can use these things as commercial instruments, you know, which is the way to do it, rather than trying to get the cash. I think the problem is people start going to these judges trying to get cash out of these situations, then they're going to get rubber stamping clowns knocking them out of the game, and don't give them the pleasure. There's no need to. You've already established your claim. Once you've established your claim, you don't need to go to court to actually act upon it. Like I say, every time one of these official departments that's really a little private corporation contacts us, causes us to suffer a tort, we cause them to suffer a commercial lien. So we've recently decided to address this in contractual form. So, for instance, I got a bill off the Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs recently, and on this they write me a little letter telling them I owe a lot of money, and the guy signs it on behalf of Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. So what we do is we attach an extension on the bottom, and I put a signature to it. And the extension says, notice to agent is notice to principal. This unlawful, nonsensical, threatening correspondence has caused me to suffer a tort. Any future further unlawful correspondence from you or your corporation will be subject to a commercial lien in the sum of £2 million sterling. All agents, representatives and individuals should be made aware that they are subject under common law to full commercial liability for their actions, and inform any bonding agents or insurers accordingly. Any further contact from you or your corporation will be confirmation of this contract, and I then sign it. So it's got his signature, it's got my signature. If this corporation writes to me again, they owe me £2 million. If that chap there happens to be silly enough to put his signature on it, some bloke I don't even know, some bloke in Edinburgh writing to me telling me I owe him money, then he's subject to it as well. So quite simple, really, isn't it? So, find yourself a copy, send it by registered post, £1.23. Send it to them, make sure your signature is on it and theirs. That is now a two-party signed contract. It's not got the force of law in none of this stuff, it's all legals. So that was a contract they sent me, so we address it and we make it into a two-party signed contract. And that's the way to deal with it. Parking tickets, council bills, anything you want. They cause you to suffer a tort, cause them to suffer a commercial lien. That's the name, that's law. It's not legal, but it's law. Not worried about legal. We had a lady lawyer come up from London for the council tax, because we've been fighting council tax for all the properties for a long time, and this lady lawyer came up to try and get the costs for a previous hearing for about £5,500. What it was, they tried claiming that I owed business rates on a piece of land, but the problem being I'd sold the land a couple of years before. I hadn't told them, why should I tell them? And so they still kept trying to push for it. Went all the way to the bankruptcy procedure, and then of course I issued them documents. It's not my land, so they withdrew. But then they still tried claiming the costs against us. So, so we went to court. They got a lady barrister because the council in Hereford, High Council, aren't insured to speak to me. So they won't communicate with me or have any dealings with me because I said that it's more than £500,000 commercial liens, and the chief acting lawyer for Hereford Council, acting lawyer, chief acting lawyer, we issued a commercial lien against him, and so they have to use other solicitors. Well, what's the point of having a legal team if you can't do your legals? But so the council, basically been battered off. So they got this lady lawyer from London, and she came up, and of course I don't think she was. So when she came to the court, I issued her a bill of obligation saying, "Hi, do you want to go into that arena? Yeah, are you going to challenge me in there? Yeah, okay. Well, I don't particularly want to go in. You're causing me to suffer a tort. If you want to go in there, it's going to cost you £500,000. There you go. Thank you. Should we go? Yeah, off we go. So she then owes me £500,000. We then go into the procedure, and I just do the usual. They've got the jurisdiction and all the rest of it. And then we then battle commenced. And the lady lawyer was waffling on, rule, regulation, and all this sort of nonsense. So just, can we get on with it? Because this is nonsense, isn't it? Let's listen to the facts, right? Not the rules and the regulations. Rules and regulations can't be adjusted. Facts are, I'm a human being, and this is a rule. What evidence have you got? So the judge is going, all right, guy, all right, because they call me, all right, guy, all right, all this. But anyway, cut long story short, the judge was basically on our side on that, wasn't he? And he said to her, so when did you realise you were wrong? So she tried waffling around it. Yeah, but fair enough, but when did you realise you were wrong? So then he asked me what my remedy would be for it, and I said, well, we've got a lot of costs against us anyway, thanks to this. But I'm prepared to, like say, let bygones be bygones, no costs either way. So he agreed with me, so there was no costs. But of course I still had the lien against her, or the bill of obligation against her, because that's a separate matter. So it's all contract and consent. And so when the police officers or anyone comes to you, if they're not on their oath of office, then they're trying to enter into contract with you, as anybody is. And if they want to enter into contract with you and you don't want to enter into contract with them, then you tell them and you issue them a bill of obligation. She was really gutted at the end. I mean, bless her. I mean, at the end, I said, there's nothing personal, love. When my father died 7 years ago, I took out an £824,000 loan to pay off all stuff, death duties and all the rest of it, all the stuff. No problem. I paid it off. Was paying it back before I got into all this stuff, really, in about 2007. We discovered that the bank had taken out another loan for £904,000 and paid off the £824,000 loan. And I hadn't been told. I hadn't signed a document. I knew nothing about it. So complete fraud. Never mind all the fiat currency. Now this is complete fraud. Yeah. So I contacted the bank manager saying, when did I come over to you? When did we manifest this intent? That there must be some letters between us. I can't just have telepathically one day turned up and taken out a £904,000 loan to pay off a previous loan. He wouldn't answer the letter. So again, just when we were first getting into all this stuff, really, sent him a letter and said, listen, we got serious questions we need answering, because it was my understanding that he gets a bonus based on the amount of money. So he got a bonus for the 824, and of course, if he another loan of 900, he's got another bonus for that, which has been paid off. But of course, all the properties that were charged to the £824,000 loan were then released from charge because technically it was paid. So I questioned him and I said, look, I want mutual remedy on this. I've written to you once. This is the second time I'm writing to you now. When did I take this loan out? Why did I take this loan out? Why would I have taken this loan out? And
That's the signature.
And that isn't my signature. If it is, it's photoshopped. So anyway, no answers. So cut long story short, we had the bank manager with a £10 million lien. It was 10, wasn't it? And we had Barclays with a £100 million lien. So, and then we said, I'm not going to make any more payments to you until you've resolved this, because as far as we're concerned, there's something going on. Of course, they acquiesced to the whole situation. So we then issued them the notarised statements of truth. They got them. And so the Barclays Bank owed me £100 million and the bank manager owes me £10 million. So now the point for people is really this. When you've got a bank owes you that money, albeit the directors of that bank owe you the money. So you write it to Barclays Bank, but you're writing it to the individual directors. Now the directors can come and go from the bank, but when you go to be made a new director of the bank, you get told its assets and its liabilities. So part of its liabilities is the liability that you've put upon them, yeah. So this is what we've done with them. So what we're looking at doing is, for instance, if you're doing things like this, if someone's house has been repossessed by Barclays for £200,000, then they can have £200,000. I could take it off issue Barclays with a document saying we've taken £200,000 off your lien, and we're letting this person still live in that house. When they come around with any foreclosure documents, they come around with the King of Hearts, you've got the Ace of Spades, because your decision has been proved, and so this is the way to stop these people robbing people, really and truthfully. A statutory declaration is Statutory Declarations Act 1835. They brought this out to get rid of oaths, basically, and this is a lot of this is to do so they could operate inside their legals without having to apply. So when you write affidavits and statements of truth and things, they don't actually have to read them, because they're not in a court of law. You're in a court of legal, and so they can't hear law. The law is what's going on inside that area you're in, and so we discovered that the way to address this is with a statutory declaration. Now, if you've ever had any court proceedings go on without your knowledge, so if ever you've, say, had a bailiff come around your house, or someone comes around, knocks the door and says that you owe money and there's been a court decision made against you, you can immediately get that court decision quashed, or set aside it's called, by signing a thing called a statutory declaration. And it costs you £5, and you swear that you're telling the truth, and go to jail if you're telling lies, that you knew nothing of those procedures that went before it, and so the court case will be set aside. So what I've done recently is I've written to the court on a matter and statutorily declared to them that it's not a court. It's an unlawful administrative hearing for which I don't give consent. The only way it could possibly operate as a court is if I consented to it, and I certainly won't. I don't trust them, and I don't want anything to do with these people, because as far as I'm concerned they're all complicit in criminal activity. So, because they're all earning money out of this situation, the court's a corporation, the HMSCS is a corporation, the council is a corporation, they're all trading with each other. You can show they're all trading with each other through Dun and Bradstreet, etc. And so they're basically all operating in a commercial capacity. We have fascism, that's what that is. So I wrote them saying that they're not a court, that they're unlawful administrative hearing, and I've sworn to that, and a little bit here. I put, being a long-time student of matters both constitutional and common law, I'm well aware that county and civil courts are not lawful courts, and that their procedures are unlawful administrative hearings, which require my consent before any honourable arbitration can take place. Since no proof of claim exists, and I have no reason to trust the procedures of any county court, I do not consent to the involvement of the county court. Consequently, any furtherance of this fraudulent activity by any public servant or officials in this matter will be considered complicity in a criminal conspiracy, and consequently misconduct in public office and fraud in the Fraud Act 2006. So basically, and if I'm lying, send me to prison 5 years. And if I'm not lying, I'm telling the truth, and if they proceed with it, then we'll issue them a commercial lien, because they're causing me to suffer a harm. What it is, that actually puts on the glasses for them, because when you have to give them a statutory instrument for them to comprehend what's going on in a statutory situation. So when we're hitting them with lawful documents like affidavits and stuff, they just push them to one side, because we can't hear law, we can't see law. You have to give them a statutory instrument. So, and a statutory declaration is a statutory instrument. So you state your truth, make sure your hands on your heart and you're telling the truth, and give it to them, and then they have to work with that. So that's what we've started using against them. Because at the end of the day, when they won't listen to us, we've been telling them the law, and they're not listening to the law because they're not operating inside the law. We have to use their own instruments against them. So we put the mirror up. So the Master Oath Keeper, I noticed that on the top of statutory declarations, the first thing they ask you is they're asking you your occupation. Well, I'm thinking they're asking you what you occupy. So they're asking you what your occupation is. So the thought being, why would they want to care what my occupation is? Farm labourer, mechanic, whatever it is. They're obviously more interested in what your occupation is to give whatever validity to that document when they on first sight, I presume. So I decided that I'm a Master Oath Keeper, because it's my job to make sure that public servants are operating inside the boundaries afforded them by legislation, and so go around to courts and ask them to make sure they're on their oath of office for the public's good, voluntary service. And if we all go around providing things like this, then I think it's in everyone's interest. Basically, these people are they are very much like the collaborators in the Second World War. The local mayors of Vichy, down in the south of France. We'll deal with the Nazis. We'll be okay. We'll work with them. And the next thing they're getting a few quid, and it's all. And this is exactly what we've got. If we've got judges and we've got all these public officers who are operating outside the law, and we're telling them to operate outside the law. Because maybe they had mitigation, maybe they thought they were inside the law. But once we've informed them that they're outside the law, then they should know full well to go and check what we're saying is true. And if they did, they would quickly find out that what we're saying is exactly the truth. They're all operating outside the law. And they'll have to suffer commercial liens. I can understand they might be worried about their pensions and all this sort of stuff, but they ain't going to get no pensions. If they're operating outside the law, and they are not going to be getting no pensions. So, they want to start thinking about what they're doing. So, making sure these public servants are on their oath is what we need to do. And you'll be very quick to discover that if you haven't broken the law, they're not on their oath. As I said to them one time I was in court, I went in and said, well, listen boys, the game's up. No, I didn't know. I said, you've been run-board. And they're all sat in there. I said, you're not. Look, this isn't a court. He's not on his oath. You've all caused me to suffer a tort. What's going on? Why do you keep dragging me back here? This nonsense, So it's what they've done to us.
View the world down a barrel of an AK, window of a big plane, radio in Mayday, or in a van with your 90-second payday. Crash it on a freeway, end up with a sentence and an X-ray. It all leads back to money and respect. Who's got the bling and the power over death? What's yours is mine and mine is yours. See my open house and open doors. If you steal from me, I'm gonna steal from you. It's the New World Trade Part 2. Keep your views on the news as we feud for the right to claim who's right and who's who. A suicide or a cruise from deep blue. Confederate versus terrorist for troops. And in truth, I'm still confused and I wanna be free and safe from you. Do you really wanna blow up planes and blow up cars? Do you wanna blow up trains and blow up bars? You wanna share your pain and blow up stars? You wanna see the world torn apart? You wanna blow up planes and blow up cars? You wanna blow up trains and blow up bars? Taking center stage, you're a star. You wanna see the world torn apart?
That's law. Not legal, but it's law.